Welcome back. All right, I'm going to talk about something a little different today. I'm wearing Empire gear for a reason. Australia just bringing into law basically a right to disconnect from work. And it's interesting because it feels like as time has gone on now and everybody's got a cell phone, you're attached to your phone at all times, which means you've got access to your email at all times. That means that employers have in kind decided, well, they've got their phone, so I can call them at all times. And the question of whether or not you can get fired for not answering the phone on your day off, they can fire you for not answering the phone on your day off. Now, full transparency, I've never answered my phone on my day off when I've had a brick and mortar job. Um, and I knew that I could have been disciplined for that. I never was. So why didn't I answer? Because weekends are important. Weekends, when you're working 5 days a week, 40 plus hours a week, and in some cases, there was forced overtime of 2 to 4 hours per day. So when I've already worked, say, a 50-hour week, and now they're trying to call me to come in on my weekend for another 10 hours, which is what it would have been, my body, my heart, and my soul say no. And so that was the thing. I just wouldn't answer the phone. I would go into work. I'd have people saying, "You're going to get in trouble. You didn't come in." And I was like, "I'm not." And I would think of Peter from Office Space every time. Like, Peter from Office Space was kind of my hero for a while. And while I never missed a day that I was scheduled to work, I was also not very anxious to come in on days off, unless money was desperately needed or if it was forced overtime. But even still, I would do my best to make sure I wasn't stressing my body out to the point where I was gonna get burnt out. And when you're working a physical job, and most of the jobs I've had, most of the years I've worked have been physical jobs, you have limited protections too if you get hurt. And if they can find some reason to argue that you got hurt through your own ignorance or, you didn't say anything, or they will find almost any excuse not to pay you out, you're left holding the bag. So you go out, you overwork yourself, and then your employer's like, yeah, it's a shame you overworked yourself like that. All those aches and pains, the back problems you're having, not work related. You're fine. Other than that, and I've watched them argue that, and I've been shocked every time. I'm not sure why. I should be used to corporations saying, yeah, no, we don't think that was a work related injury, and for me to stand there and say, well, I documented that it was. All the paperwork's there. Yeah, we don't think it is. So really, the boss will call people in. And then the other side of it too, with the last job I had, you would go from working 50 hours a week as a part-time new hire to working 12, and you would be expected to work the hours they gave you, which maybe one week it's a Thursday and Friday, the next week it's a Tuesday and Wednesday. So they make it so it's difficult to get another job. If you do find another job that's, a 5 day a week job, and you're like, hey, I want to keep this as a part-time, but I needed something else to, pay the bills and live, they would answer with, I guess we can't call on you anymore, and either you quit that job or you quit this one. Well, people aren't going to quit the one giving them 12 hours a week, so the turnover would continue. Now, according to what I was reading, Spain, Italy, Portugal, France all have some protections in place when it comes to being allowed to disconnect from your employer when you're not at work. It's this bonkers idea, and maybe it's because I'm older, but to me, it's insane. The idea that when you're not at work, you can get called in and you can get in trouble for something that happened during a time you're not scheduled to work anyways. So, again, just for my own sanity, I was practicing the right to disconnect way before any of these laws were brought in. And laws were previously in place in Belgium and Germany. And I saw, too, that certain Latin American countries have rules on companies there where they have to allow that right to disconnect. And what's interesting too is all the legislation says some, because again, going back to my most recent job, that was agricultural, and since it's agricultural and you've got expiration dates on everything, that means that they can kind of do whatever they want. So as I would be getting ready to punch out and getting ready to go home, I'd have a supervisor tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, we need you to stay for an extra 4 hours today. And when I would say, but who's going to be there when my kids get home from school? I don't have anything in place for that. They'd go, I guess you have to figure something out. And they turn around and walk away. Now, when a supervisor would do that, and sometimes a supervisor would tell me, sorry, we don't have any work, you have to go home. And my answer to that would be, I can't go home. Like I need a 40-hour work week to pay my bills and my rent and everything. And they would again just shrug and go, sorry, you have to go. And so I didn't feel bad about not answering the phone on my days off when times got really busy, because they didn't feel bad for sending me home when I couldn't afford to go home. So that was kind of how I looked at it, like, oh, okay, so you guys need me, and they'd give you this whole speech about how important you were to the company and they loved having you around. And then it would slow down. They'd be like, yep, GTFO. But keep that in mind next month when we're forcing you to work overtime. All right, sure, thanks. Work-life balance is really important. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this video, because it is. Now, as a YouTuber, do I do a great job of work-life balance? No. And I admit that. But that's part of the reason why we go on vacations, and I force myself to go on these vacations. I pre-record videos so that I'm not in a hotel room making videos for a majority of the time I'm on vacation, which I used to do. But that is an important thing to have, that separation between your work and your home life. And I say this again as somebody who works out of his home. Apparently the UK and Kenya are considering laws. I didn't see anything about the US. Canada's been thinking about tabling it, but it's not going to happen. I would be very surprised if it happens anytime soon in Canada. And so, yeah, it is just one of those things that I think should have laws against it. Basically, once you step out the door and they're not paying you, they can't start yelling at, like, it'd be like them just showing up at your house. Like, to me, being able to just text and email all the time with, like, come in, you have to come in, you have to come in. They might as well just show up at your door and come into your house and start rifling through your crap. Like, it's just, it feels like, to me, it feels like it's that separation you need between work and home that isn't always there. And again, do I struggle with that? Absolutely, yes. If it's the middle of the afternoon and it's a quiet afternoon, I'll come in here and make a video because I feel like I might as well be doing some work while I'm, looking at a nice quiet afternoon. I can't just relax. It's one of the things that I work on, but I don't just relax. So I do want to point out too, overwork does lead to burnout. And this is something that I do pay attention to when it comes to even just this, which I know some people don't qualify as work, which is fine, I guess. But to me, I get paid every month by a company for the videos I make and upload. So I don't work directly for the company per se, as in they've never hired me. But since they're getting a cut of the revenue generated by the channel, it's a partnership of sorts. They qualified as a partnership, but if your channel starts generating less money and less views, they let you know, and they'll tell you pretty darn quick. And they'll have a lot of tips. Tips suddenly start showing up. So on the hockey channel, because hockey's been quiet, all of a sudden I'm getting all these tips and all these, hey, look at this, and this is new, and try this, and try this. It's just, it's crazy. And it's their way of kind of nudging the creator of, hey, you're not making us as much money. Could you be doing more? And I'm answering with, how do I create news? I know there's been times where I'm dealing with somebody from YouTube and I'm talking, via video call, and they'll be like, hey, so this video was a really big hit. Do you think there's a way you can make a video like that again? And it'll be a news item that happened in the hockey world. No, I can't create news. I can't create that. So I'm glad that video did really well and you guys noticed, but I can't recreate it. There's no way to do it. Unless you want me to just re-release the same video again, but they frown upon that. They really don't like that. So overwork does lead to burnout. There have been times in this job where I've been burned out, and there definitely were times I was burned out in my old job, especially when it would be overtime and extra days. And so I did feel like, I think we have the right to not necessarily answer the phone when they call. And I would know what time of day they were going to call. And I would know who was going to call. Because there was one supervisor that they kind of put in charge of that. And I always felt like it's because they were the lowest rung on the ladder in terms of seniority. And they knew a bunch of workers would be yelling at them over the phone. So you give that to the new supervisor. Now, one thing that I found fascinating, and I went through a few different articles on this, is a quote saying, you're fighting a culture that is centered around work as identity. This absolutely is a thing where people will see their job as being who they are. And it's important to me, and again, it's something that I've fought against the whole way through. When I worked at a call center, I wore hockey jerseys. Wore hockey jerseys because they were good in all forms of weather, and also because it wasn't technically against dress code. And then when they updated the dress code, it didn't qualify as casual. So in other words, I couldn't wear it during certain business hours, but after 4 o'clock in the afternoon and on weekends, those were considered casual times that you could wear what you wanted within reason. So I just switched my shift to an evening and weekend shift and went right back to wearing them again. When I worked at the meat plant, I usually wore hockey jerseys because, again, I didn't consider my work to be my identity. And I even, they would provide some sort of stipend so you could buy steel toes. It's like steel-toed runners or steel-toed boots. I never bought my own steel toes. I thought, no, if I buy my own steel toes, it means I'm staying here. So I just basically used the boots that they provided for free, and I'd wear them down and get new ones. About every 4 months, I'd need new ones because they'd completely get worn out. But I kept thinking, no, the moment that I buy my own shoes or boots, the moment that I'm doing that, even though they're paying me back half of it, well, then part of my identity's become this job, and I don't like that idea. I don't like it at all. So I never got boots. And I would always kind of have little outs. Like I would wear a hard hat, but I would have stickers on the inside of the brim of the hard hat that I would have Canucks, Bruins, and Stars, so that when I looked up, I could see those hockey logos, and I could think, someday I'm not going to be here doing this. That's why I did that. You weren't supposed to have stickers on your hard hat, but since I had them on the inside of the brim, and I'm shorter than almost everybody else, nobody knew they were there unless I put my hard hat on the table upside down, and I didn't do that even at lunch. So, yeah, it was just one of those things where I'd look up and go, yeah, someday I'm not going to be in here doing this job. Someday I'm going to have a better job than this. And also it was just kind of my way of being like, I can't do that. There were little ways that I would just in my brain say, I don't want to do this. I don't like it. But again, it's that whole culture that work is identity. And I know, like, there was, and I've told this story before, but there was one worker who had a heart attack at my old job, and they passed a day later. And I remember people saying, "Oh, he worked right up until he was such a good worker." And I thought, oh, and in my head, I didn't think to myself what a great worker and how dedicated he was to his job. All I could think was, that's sad. He never had retirement. He never had an opportunity to have like months or years of relaxing and going fishing and hanging out with his grandkids and just existing, without work. And so I thought it was more tragic, to be honest, that he worked right up until the end. But we have a society where they go, he worked right up until the end. He was so dedicated to his work. And that really is, who he was. He was such a strong worker. And he was an excellent worker, but I thought it was a sad story. And what we're seeing now with the fact that they'll email you, call you on your day off, and threaten your job if you're not willing to come in, it's going to be more situations like that. Plus, certain pushes in areas, too, to increase the retirement age to 67 or beyond, and which I think is absolutely crazy. But that's just me. I think that retirement is a good thing. I think having a chance to, enjoy life is a good thing. And going, basically you graduate high school or you graduate college and then you work and then you pass. And I don't like that idea at all. In the U.S. last week, there was somebody running for Congress for, I think it was like their 14th term, and they passed this past week. They were 87 years of age. And so it's that same thought of, man, 87 years old, never stopped working, and that's that. So while I'm very fortunate at this point in time to have what I have and to be where I'm at with both channels, when I step off the site, that's why now when I step out of the set, when I step away from the house, I'm always wearing t-shirts, sweatshirts, and I very rarely wear things that are hockey related. Maybe the hat, but probably not, because now I associate that with the job in here. So wearing jerseys out in public is more for if I'm going to do a meetup, so street hockey game, or if we're going to go to a local Abbotsford game, I'll throw on an Abbotsford or a Vancouver Canucks jersey. But in general, I try not to wear them as much now because that's my job now. And so it's important to me to not be my job, to not just... One of the reasons why I reach out to people I was friends with before the channel blew up is because those people know me as Shannon. Those people know me as the guy they work next to, the guy that maybe they bagged with me for 4 hours, you know, where you're just bagging these trays up and throwing the bags on the conveyor, and you're just doing that for 4 hours at a time. And it's hard. It's a fast job, but I was pretty darn good at it. And so people that I worked with like that, it's fun to talk to them because they don't know me as the hockey guy. They know me as Shannon, that guy that they worked with at the job. So it's always enjoyable for me to touch base with people. But when I worked there, I generally didn't talk that much to my coworkers outside of work because it would always turn into a work discussion. And it would usually turn into, so on Monday we're supposed to have this. No work talk. Stop it. Just stop it. So I think that employers take advantage of that. I think employers take advantage of that, and they really bring into this idea of, hey, you guys come in and do this for us, and that'd be great. And the example I've used for that in previous videos too is when I worked at my first full-time job, which was working with poultry, and the owner coming in and telling us, hey, you know, I know you guys really... It was around Christmas. It was, I know you guys really, you know, love your holidays, and that's important, but there was a big blizzard, and so we had lost 2 days of work because everything was shut down. And so the boss was like, hey, we're going to need to have you guys work a couple extra days here. You're going to have to help in and really, you know, really help out around here, and thank you so much. So the owner talked us into it, and we were like, yeah, we'll do that. And then immediately the owner took his family to Hawaii for 2 weeks, like the next day. It's the next day or a couple days later, but that always stuck with me. Where it was like, he's just telling us this sob story about, oh, all the money we're losing and everything, and then he goes to Hawaii for a week or two. So that definitely changed the opinion the next time around when it was, can you please come out and help us? Some people had a bit of a different opinion. But that's the thing, right? They sell you on this idea that we're a family, and I've seen it from my former coworkers, and anytime that you go to work for a company and they tell you, you know, I think you're going to fit right in here. We consider this to be a family. It's really, it's this family environment. And, you know, sometimes we have little arguments here and there, but we work it out in the end. It's a pretty good place. I think you're going to like it here. Run as quickly as you can. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Just run, gone. Just go. And don't look back. Just don't. Because anytime that a boss says, we think of this place as like a family. They're the dad, you're the kid, and they never let you forget it. And it's a dysfunctional family. It's always a dysfunctional family. And there have been a few times where something ugly will happen at an old job that I would say, well, at least we're a family, right? This sucks. But anyways, there you go. I just wanted to weigh in on this because I know that work-life balance kind of gets lost in this era where we all have our phones attached to us at all times. And I do too. But during my trip to Disney a couple weeks ago, I was putting my phone away a lot. That's why I was wearing a watch a majority of the time that I was at Disneyland. So I had my watch to look at for the time. I wasn't pulling my phone out, and it worked. Absolutely worked. Where I could kind of forget the phone for a few hours and just, you know, live and enjoy life and do stuff. And I do need to do more of that. Absolutely. That is my intention as years pass here. But yeah, the work ethic of people being abused is how I see this. And it's too bad because there's some really good hard workers that will get worked right into the ground by their employers, who will then applaud them for being worked right into the ground, and then just keep working. Keep working that day, keep working days after. Never give anybody any time off to mourn anybody who passes, even if they pass at the workplace. It's kind of crazy when I think about it, but it's reality. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And yeah, thank you guys so much for all your support. And remember, work-life balance, really, really important. when they say this workplace is like a family. Get out. Go. Because it's not a family. You're working for the Empire, and they don't ask you about overtime. They just tell you Vader force chokes you. So that's why I'm wearing what I'm wearing. But anyways, there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.